So I actually wanted to watch this off stream and then immediately stopped at the very beginning. And when we get there, I think I'll share why. But yeah, here we go. Inside Star Citizen, Persistence Existence, the PES version of Inside Star Citizen. Here we go.
Hey all, Space Dad here, coming to you from a secret facility that we'll be talking more about next quarter. Now,
I don't think Jared knows what Space Dad means.
Alpha 3.18 has a whole lot of features that players have been anxious for updates on. And while we'll get to all of them like we always do before this quarter is out, we wanted to take this week's show and slow things down a bit for an uninterrupted, unabridged chat about persistent entity streaming. What it is, how it's been going, where it's at now, and what's coming up next. And we'll get back to our normal features next week, but for now, please join me in welcoming Benoit Beauséjour, CTO of our partners at Turbulent, for what we're calling our very first PES report.
This is when I turned it off. Our very first PES report. That means that they know that it is very far away, most likely. Okay? And they never showed PES working. They never are like this is smoke and mirrors more than I've ever seen it before in my life. And when he's saying our very first report and Xylo is giving a date, something isn't right. And we all know we're getting burned down. You guys are typing burn down and stuff in chat. We all know we're getting that with the road to 4.0 garbage. It's all just, yeah. And I get it. They need to figure out what they're going to do in terms of content moving forward with the state that they're in of the game. Like, they're not going to be able to do the ISCs, SCLs, and things like they've done in the past, because we're at this stage where the priority is like really technical things and not like show and tell things. But there's, to me, is if it worked, you have to find a way to show it to the player that it worked. And if you were able to show it in the studio, how at this stage have you not been able to show it to the player? It's mind-blowing. It's that very first, we're making a show around this, is so CIG, it's not even funny. And it just makes me think nothing will ever change. This is always going to be the same. It's always going to be like this. And I'm not going to lie, I don't want to be a part of this kind of stuff anymore. It's getting frustrating. You don't need a video. You didn't need any of this. A simple Spectrum post 2 months ago would have sufficed for what's going on. You probably wouldn't have all the information that you would get in this, but then you make another Spectrum post. It's insane.
So, Benoit, welcome back to ISC. To start things off, give us a nickel version of what persistent entity streaming is.
Persistent entity streaming is a system that allows us to persist the entire game world and
forced.
restore it from disk so that it's never lost and changes from players are meaningful.
And what's that look like to the player? How will players know if PES is working or not?
They're going to know because every time they come back to the same server, the state will be the same. So if you leave a ship, a can, or any kind of items in the world, it'll stay there. You blow up a door, it'll be blown on that server forever.
But part of this is something that cleans up the junk afterwards, right?
Yeah, some items will be covered under lifecycle management, which they'll get recycled.
Why is Jared talking like
obviously,
that?
we need some kind of janitorial system behind the scenes. But there also are discussions about gameplay to do that, to help players, to get players to help us clean up the game world. But yes, that's a new avenue that persistent entity streaming opens up.
All right, so we brought everyone up to speed on what PES is. Let's get to the updates. Now, last time we heard anything was from Chris's letter from the chairman back in May, where we'd just dropped something on the ground, shut the servers down, brought the servers back up, and it was still there. What's happened in the last 3 months?
Well, so the team, which is a fairly large team at this point, has been
This is the key thing. What have you been doing? And when you've been doing those things, why haven't you kept us up to date? What have you been doing that we don't know, that we didn't know about, that we had to wait until this very weird conversation happened?
working really hard to get our first stage delivery to what we call game dev, which is our main branch. What that means is we've moved from a prototypical work branch into what everybody in the company is using to develop the game. And so that's the big achievement, is now the technology
server
is
costs
in
incoming?
the game dev branch.
no
So
idea what you're
everybody
talking
is
about.
using it in day to day, day in, day out testing. So all the bugs appear, they're right in our faces. We fix them right away. It's been a bit of a crazy time, but that's the big achievement in the last three months, is that we've stabilized the technology enough so that the entire company can now be working on it.
Uh,
So they moved it. So in case you guys don't know, a dev team will work on a feature outside of the main game thing. The main game branch has Squadron 42 on it and Star Citizen. It has literally every asset that the game would have. Okay, that's where, and then they take that and they leave some things in there, they cull some things out, and then they make, let's say, 317.2. So they add something, they work on the side, add it to game dev, stabilize it, and then pull out a 317.2 and leave like Squadron 42 stuff there, right? That's basically how it works. And since that update from the letter from the chairman, worked on it on the side and brought it into the main game dev branch, which is very obvious because they had said some things in the monthly report, like people were working on it, right? Teams working on it. It's probably been in the game dev branch for some time. Why didn't you tell us that? Right? Like those kind of things. It's as simple as that. When people are crying for an update, it took us a while to move into game dev. Okay. And then there would be no argument to be had. And there would be no need for this. This feels awkward. This feels weird. This feels forced.
define crazy.
The define crazy, everything being on fire, this technology touches on every subsystem in the game. So transit was busted, stuff was persisting in the wrong locations. You couldn't log into the game because obviously with PES comes a new login flow to get players into the game, because we need to bring your items into a new database. So that entire system was also rocky to get in, because there's a lot of cases to deal with, like timeouts if you have too many items, what happens if you have too many items, and dealing with all the different stages of the login, from authentication to you being actually spawning in the game. And so it's been a lot of debugging, encountering.
And if you were a reasonable game developer or a reasonable person, the assumption would have been that there was no chance that anything said in the Chris Roberts letter would have made it in the time frame that he stated it in, based on knowing what he just said, right? It touches everything. It took a long time, blah, 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 blah. They just made it seem like it was so much further along than it actually was. And now we're realizing how far along it really was, and that the integration into the game was going to be way more difficult than they made it appear. And that's okay. Nobody's mad that it took a long time to get in the game. I think we've all been patient for a very long time. We're able to be patient for longer. I know I am. What I'm not patient for is the way they communicate these things.
Issues on different types of machines, because when we start, all the developers have some pretty good machines on those feature branches, but when we move to game dev, now we're exposed to all kinds of different hardware, and timing issues occur. Those are the weird ones to find. They're really difficult to trace, in fact. But so that's been the craziness, is getting exposed to way more machine types or users as well, right? Like the game requires a lot of resources to run when we develop locally. And so sometimes, one service doesn't start on somebody's machine, and that causes, all these crashes to start being reported, and now we have to investigate them.
In case
And
you
so
guys
that's
didn't know
been
what
a bit of
Benoit's
it's
name
the
is,
real time effect that makes it crazy. It's like,
he
it's
holds
not,
it
we're
in his
not making
hand.
technology in a bubble anymore where everybody's using it. And so that makes it really, really difficult to follow. But it's been fun to finally get the technology in the hands of people that can really adjust it for the game and for the players. And so that's been fantastic.
Yeah, and again, there's nothing wrong with it taking a long time to get in the game. But the issue with things to me is the way I understood it, the way it was communicated was that we were going to be in PTU for a long time, right? It was going to get into PTU, it was going to have its problems, and we were going to work through those problems together. We're not even at a stage where we can do that yet. We're like, we as players can find the edge cases, report some bugs and things like that. It's obviously been way like completely unplayable. He said transit didn't work, players couldn't even log in, right? So they had a rough time getting it in. All you had to do was say that, dude. All you had to do was say it. What he just said right there was all that need to happen a long time ago. It's not bad project management. It could be. But in this case, like the only issue that I have is Benoit could have typed that on Spectrum weeks and weeks and weeks ago, because we know that they were working on transit a long time ago. Right? Because we read the monthly reports. So the things that were the blockers, the things that caused issues, we knew that they were working on a long time ago, and they still didn't take the time out to treat us with the respect that we deserve as backers of this game. And that is to just be communicated to in a timely fashion. Not in this, whatever this is not what we need. We need communication in a timely fashion about when, where, why things are happening. Right? That's it.
So that's been the last couple months. But where
I'm
are
not
we
even
at
mad anymore.
right now?
I'm over it.
So right now on the
I'm over
technology
this
side,
shit.
we're in bug fixing mode, right? And identifying the elements that are left that are still, rough around the edges. So I don't want to call it polish. It's really bug fixing, bug testing, stabilization. Stabilization is the right word. That's what we're
Yeah,
doing right now.
it's
So
getting
it's
it into a
feature
state where
parity
we
and
can
making sure everything
test.
works the way it should. On the other side, there's a new team that's kicking in work, which is deployment teams, right? So this is taking the technology that we have working on a game dev build and locally, and basically breaking it up into a lot of small services that run in the cloud. So the operationalization of the technology, that's what we're really focusing on now.
I think he means like working with the like shopping service and your like a lot of the things that maybe even like VoIP, right?
It's like a dependent project, right? So this allows us to basically bring the game to you guys. That's where we can do PTU. So PTU is for a lot larger than a developer running the game on his machine. Even though there's tons of services when we go to the cloud, we've got operators that
No.
deploy that on multiple.
So guys, just so you know, it's not a new team. It's a team that hasn't worked on it yet. Right? A new team that currently works in the studio is now doing their end of the work. It's not a new team that was created. Deployment's always been a thing. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what Proxys works on. I think he's in that
Multiple machines
department.
and scale this out. This is made to scale. So now it's about testing that's true. So we've got the technology is working. Now we're trying to scale it out to the cloud, see, how many users we're taking in there, the weight of the entities, how many entities we end up having in the databases, can they reload fast enough, testing all of the facets of the assumptions that we had, but really getting this technology ready to be deployed for players to play on.
Has the recent change in server player counts had any effect on PES testing or its development?
At first we thought it was going to have an effect, but the reality is the same amount of entities get stored, whether 100 players are simulated or 50. So no, for the moment there is no side effect to having more player caps, because obviously there's more entities being changed, but ultimately for the same amount of players online, whether
Yeah.
they're divided on 50, 100 players per server doesn't
Yeah, it's the same
change
amount of
anything for
players playing. It
PS.
doesn't make a difference.
Great, awesome. But what's next? Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? It's a straight line to deployment, right? That's the only thing that matters right now is to make sure that the technology can run in the cloud properly, that it scales out, that if we have more players coming in, either in a short period of time or in a long period of time, that we can, add more provisioning, add more machines to run it, making
So
sure
that's very important, right? So what he said there is very, very, very important. All the issues that we have now with the current game, what is like the main issues that we're having right now is issues with like our inventories and our Mobiglass showing $0. That's been like a lot of database problems. And this is making sure that if they do a free fly one time that really pops off and a lot of new players are added to the database, that it doesn't screw the rest of us up, right?
it operates well at scale. So when, all of you guys are online to make sure that everything's
This has nothing to do with
properly,
server
that
tick rates, guys.
we recover from errors. This tech comes with a lot more observability than the previous systems that we had. So we have tons of graphs and like data that's coming in from the system operating. And we're, the teams need to get used to this to be able to identify problems, to be able to help support. We have a bunch of new tools that we're also working in the last stretch here to allow game support to help players that have issues. Character repair is something that we're starting to work on. Mind the word here is not character reset, but character repair, which is something that we can now do that we could not do before. So that will allow us to not, just destroy people's inventories and items, but really go and fix one issue on so that they can keep playing. So
nice.
We're trying to get that in before we launch it because we think that would be very beneficial for if there are corruption events again. We're trying to. The technology is made to not have those, but look, better safe than sorry. But so that's really the work now is login flow and PES is just stabilization and deployment so that we can launch it. So it's beeline for 3.18 is all. It's like we're banging on it until it gets in properly.
Now, I know we don't like to do dates, but we got a whole lot of player testers waiting to help bang on the pipes. You wanna forecast anything?
Oh, no, I'm not even going to try to gamble on that one.
Love it. I'm not even going to try to gamble on that one. Yet a community manager did. Where did he get the information from? If the guy who heads the team or the studio that would work on this isn't willing to communicate a date, why did our community manager just communicate a date? The end of September. You know what that tells me already? It ain't coming at the end of September. Right? Maybe it comes before. Maybe I'm high. But I don't know what Xylo was doing. I don't know what anyone at the community team was doing for the last 3 months. Aside from posting contests. And it's very frustrating. And I just want to, this is the last time that I will communicate this, at least when on this React, is please learn from your mistakes that you've been making for the last 10 years. Please stop making the same mistakes. And when things are going bad, then immediately just shut down and not say anything. It is so much better to communicate when things are going wrong. And this, did anything even go wrong here? That's the thing. Did anything go wrong here? That's the crazy thing. From a game development standpoint, did anything go wrong? Or did everything go exactly how it was probably expected to go? All right, we proved that the tech works. It took a while to integrate into game dev. Was that unexpected at all? But the communication was not like that in the letter from the chairman, and then that was the only communication we got from that point forward. There was nothing ever said about it. Nothing. It just is insane to me. It's insane. And then we're still asking devs to give dates and still giving dates. I don't think a single sane fucking member of this community cares what the date is. They just want to be treated with the respect of being updated and letting us know where it's at now and kind of what the road ahead is going to be like, so we can follow the project, follow the development, and see that it's getting closer. That's it. We want to see progress. I don't want to hear when the date's going to be. I want to see progress. And I did not see a single bit of progress on PES. I heard a developer talk about where they are, but I didn't see anything. And that's where I stand with this. You should, at this point, if it's in game dev, be able to take a server down and show. You could just show the 30K come up and then cut and be right back where you were, and there's all the stuff you left on the ground. I don't know why we can't show that. It's insane to me. If it's actually working.
We have it running in the cloud. It's running, right?
Oh, it's running.
Before we're comfortable not sending the ETF team into a, just fire drill. That's going to be, there's a big difference between testers, internal testers, developers using the system, and when we get real users on it, it's completely different, right? And so it's hard to say for me. Like, I don't want to forecast it.
That's fair. Now, before we let you go, I want to reiterate that PES isn't a traditional feature like players are used to. When it works, Star Citizen isn't going to look any different. It'll just be another step closer to functioning like we've always intended to. It's a major step forward in stability when all is said and done.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're not going to have wipes anymore, because there's always data changes that will require us to do that. But we're really hoping that the technology will allow us to have consistent data, which we don't always have right now.
No.
Every player's had horror stories of how losing their mobi glass or their eyes.
But there'll be problems with this
which is incidentally one thing I discovered in this project is that if you don't have eyes, you don't see markers in your visor. That's an interesting one. So trying to make sure that the data's, the technology will make sure that the data is safe and sound. So obviously less corruption. So that's the first thing we expect. Second one, stuff will persist. And to be honest, at this time, we don't totally know what that's going to mean when we put real players in it, right? So we do have life cycle systems and cleanups and all that stuff. Yes, we plan for that. But we don't yet know what you guys will do with it. And that will greatly affect how the technology functions, right, in the end.
Oh my God.
So that's going to be interesting to see. So as a player, stuff you put on one server will stay there, right? It's there until that server gets wiped manually, but by default, every server will just persist. Like you said, it's a stepping stone technology. Really, what this means is behind the scenes, the simulation and the replication of the game. So simulation is the stuff that runs the physics and the rendering and the AI, right, is one thing, and the replication, which is sending updates and the state of all these entities as they're being simulated. This used to be like this, right? And now with PES and the game server, this is split into two. And that's the big achievement that PES allows us to do.
Okay.
Yes, we get persistent state. That's awesome. That's great. But the real thing is that we separate simulation from replication. And that allows us to do server meshing after that. And that's the reason why we're doing this.
Yep. All right. Last question then. How do you feel?
Good. I feel good, tired, but we're in the home stretch, so I'm happy. I'm happy about where we are. I'm happy that the company now can use the technology and see what it's like to persist everything. I mean, our dev servers are now littered with stuff flying around.
The big thing is it just all coming to me a little bit now is that iCache, what they told us is it didn't scale well. Now they're saying that they're making sure they put the checks and balances to make sure that it scales. I actually met this guy in Cologne, I think, and he was super cool. He was the most chill guy, and he just kind of asked us questions. Were we enjoying ourselves? All that stuff. He was so nice, but the The thing that I see here that's different than iCache is they know that it will scale. They just have to do the work to make it scale, is the vibe that I got from him. We'll have to see.
Which is cool. But
If it doesn't scale,
I
we're in
feel
trouble.
good. I feel encouraged. Also stressed out because like we need to scale it, right? So it's that 10% that takes 90% of the time, right? So that's the effect I'm a bit
See,
stressed
but now
out
we just
for,
need
but
to
it's okay.
scale
I
it.
feel
But
good about
that's what iCache. That's the problem iCache had too, was scaling. So we'll see. They seem to think that this will scale where the other time it didn't.
All right, Benoit, thank you for your time, man.
Thank you, man.
So, what did we learn this week? Well, hopefully, it's that persistent entity streaming may
This is
not
definitely
be
the
the
new
most
studio behind him.
visual of features, but it is the next big step in realizing a universe where players can truly leave their mark. The last major milestone that'll make server meshing possible, and that it's still heading your way in the upcoming Alpha 3.18. Now, thank you.
Buddy, nobody thought it wasn't heading our way. Nobody thought it was dead. I mean, people who thought it was dead were just dumb, because you can keep pushing 3.18 back further and further and further. It was the timeline Chris Roberts gave versus the complete silence you and the community team provided from that point forward. We all knew it was heading our way, and we all knew that it was still fine, and we all knew that it was going to happen, but we just didn't have any update as to why we didn't get it in the timeline that we were spoken to. It's there's a clear disconnect here, right? And that's the stuff that I really struggle with, and it really frustrates me. And this isn't on Jared. Jared, they do the work that Jared does like way in advance. It is the simple community team problem. And I'm sorry. Like Jake and Xylo, I've communicated with Ulf very little. Christian, I think they're all good people. But like, you got to be able to take constructive feedback on this one. And it is just has to be your job. It just has to be your job to update these things. Whether it is telling the dev to update it, because I know like Jared said that as well, that it's very important that the developer is the one to state those things. But even just a little, hey guys, you know, it's taking a little bit of time to get it into the game dev branch. Hey guys, you know, you could see it on the monthly report. A lot of features are taking a little while to get in there. So our timeline that we thought, it might not be that. Like, I know I've said it 20, 30 times, but that's how important it is. That's how important it is. And I've said this a couple times now, is we are a part of this. We as backers are not investors. We're not, we can't stand here and tell you what to do, but I can tell you how I feel. And the way I feel is disrespected at this point. I feel like pushed in the corner when you do this stuff. It feels bad. You have to be able to give us the good news, and you have to be able to give us the bad news. And it's not even bad news. That's the thing. It's not bad news to have a little bit of trouble getting a major feature that touches every aspect of the game into the game dev branch. It sounds normal. From all the updates Jared's given over all the years, to me, that sounds normal. And if you want to look back and read the letter from the chairman, we can learn some lessons on how to communicate not that way again for the 10th year in a row. If you read what Xylo wrote on Spectrum this week, we can learn how to not communicate that way again for the 10th year in a row, and just give a little update. Hey, it's taking a little bit of time, and we'll keep you guys updated. Pretty soon, we hope to have an ISC with Benoit. Damn, done. Right? It's not dead, but we're having some trouble with it. That's okay. Nobody's going to look at you like you're an idiot. Nobody's going to get upset.
Thank you for taking this ISC detour with us this week. But
It's
don't
not a
worry,
detour.
we've still
I
got
don't get it.
4 more episodes left this quarter where we'll be covering things like hull stripping, cargo refactor, the new 600i and MSR crash lights, and more, as well as meeting
Cool.
the performance capture team and exploring their new facility next door. And then maybe we'll stop by. His people are talking to my people. We'll see
That
what
was
we
Chris
can make
Roberts.
happen. For Inside Star Citizen, I'm Jared Huckabee. We'll see you all next week.
Cool. I mean, thank you. Thank you for doing this. Right? It's more than what we needed, but it's what we got. So thank you for that. I can't say it more, guys. I can't say it more. It was overdue. I think we deserve better, and something's got to give. Something's got to change. Period. But I'm looking forward to PES. Sounds like it's going to be pretty fun.